I don't know, I'm too lazy to find the tripod right now. No, they don't care. In this video, we're going to be making 5 new carnivore recipes. Air fryer meatballs, taquitos, bacon and chorizo smothered chicken, Cheez-Its, and chicken bread. I know you're here to see this beautiful face, but I'm getting uncomfortable. Let's get started. If you follow me on Instagram, and if you're not, you should be, you'll know that I've been making air fryer meatballs a lot lately. And these are probably the easiest recipe to make in today's video. Maybe the air fryer implied that. I wanted some cheesy balls today, so I made them cheesy. Set an air fryer to 400 degrees Fahrenheit to preheat, and we can begin. Take 1 pound of ground beef, a teaspoon of salt, a little baby boy shake of black pepper, a pinch of dried thyme, a sprinkle dinkle of granulated garlic, and some real Parmesan cheese made by the good people at Belgioso. Shred 1 ounce of fresh Parmesan directly into the meat. Take some wet, meaty claws and give this a rough massage. It should only take a minute or two to incorporate. Once that's done, you can start to fondle some balls. I fondled about 2.5 ounce balls, ending up with 6 balls in total. Toss these into your preheated air fryer cup thing and set it back to cook for 12 to 15 minutes or until they're nicely browned. I like to sauce my balls, and here's a really easy recipe for that. 1 egg yolk, a pinch of black pepper, about a teaspoon of hot sauce, and finally a 1/4 cup of sour cream. Give this a mix, and now you can eat it. This is such a simple way to make ground beef, and it has such less cleanup with a lot more flavor involved. Enjoy. Taquitos. You know them, you love them. You've probably gotten food poisoning from eating them from a gas station. Let's just avoid the food poisoning route altogether by making our own. To start, place 2 ounces of pork rinds and 3 ounces of sharp cheddar cheese into a blender or food processor. Death battle some eggs into the mix as well, 4 to be exact. We'll also want to add in about 1 ounce of cream cheese to shine it up a little bit. This will be the basis for our tortillas. For these, I had decided to take a stovetop approach, even though it might have been easier in the oven. For this approach, add about 3 tablespoons of your batter into a greased pan. Press it down with some parchment paper to make it even, but be careful with those little greasy fingers. You don't want to burn them. When pressing down, there should be just a touch of batter squeezed out the other side. Carefully peel up this parchment paper, then give that tortilla a flip. Repeat until you've used up all of the batter. Here's the first one I made. We won't talk about that one, but we will definitely give it a taste. Next up, we need a spice mix for our filling. It takes 4/4 teaspoons of chili powder, 8 16th teaspoons of ground cumin, 4 1/8 teaspoons of onion powder, 1/4 of 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, like 6 grains of coarse ground black pepper, and a teaspoon of salt. Gyrate your wrists with your measuring utensil until it's homogeneous. Tasty. For the actual cooking of the beef, place 1 pound over medium-high heat along with a 1/3 cup of water. Begin matching this constantly with a rubber spatula or potato masher until we end up with a fine-grained ground beef. A little trick I learned from my buddy Sean. Once it's broken up and simmering, you can add your spice mixture. Mix this in and let it simmer for about 8 minutes to let some of the water reduce. After that, add in 4 ounces of sharp cheddar cheese. This will be the glue that keeps our beef in its place. I noticed there's a lot of grease in here, so I'm going to pull a page from my grandmother's book. Satisfying. Now, set this in the fridge for at least 30 minutes to cool down and to set a little bit. Whoa, that was pretty quick. Are you sure it's set? Alright, whatever you say, guy. Take about a 1/4 cup of your filling and place it onto a tortilla and roll. Place this seam side down onto a parchment-lined pan and repeat. Until you're done, of course. I know these look a little big, and I know they're looking a little floppy, but throw them into an oven at 400 degrees for 22 minutes, and you're left with something gloriously crispy. So golden brown and cheesy. Nah, never mind. That was a bit of a disappointing cross-section reveal. While delicious, not what I was going for. The cheese disappeared in the beef, and the tortilla wasn't crispy enough for my taquito liking. If you'd like to see a standalone video for these where I improve them, comment Yo quiero taquito bell. Or just put a taco emoji. Ah, yes. Ground-grown food items. I know what you're thinking. This one's going to be f***ing delicious. And you'd be right. For your ground-grown food item, separate the whites from the greens. Give the white parts a normal chopping into something a lot smaller, and the greens give them a chopping on a bias into something that's a lot smaller. Bias in the kitchen just means to make food look good and fancy, or whatever Anthony Bourdain said. Set your chopped ground-grown food items to the side and slap out some womb-grown food items onto the cutting board. Give this a nice slicing as well, unless you just want extremely large chunks of it in your end product. Place your WGFI into a forged steel receptacle that's set to medium-high heat. You can start from cold if you'd like to activate lipolysis even more so. Once it's starting to get foamy, which means that it's crispy, take some heavily seasoned WGFI and mash this in with a heat-tempered silicone utensil until it's nicely incorporated. Heads up, it's gonna be glossy. I strained the fatty acids back into the pan so I could cook my chicken. Use whatever you want for this chicken, but I went with a bone-in skin-on thigh for this one. Lay them skin side down and give them a nice sear over medium heat for a few minutes. The spices from the chorizo will burn, so keep the heat lower if you have any high heat cooking all the time tendencies like I do. Flip these and add a cup and a half of chicken stock. Place this into an insulated heat box that's set to 375 degrees Fahrenheit for about 35 minutes. While that's in the oven, grab another pan and place it over medium-high heat. Add your meat mixture back into the pan and just kind of play around with it for a minute. You remember those ground-grown food items from earlier? Yeah.
Add those as well.
Behold, the comments section where someone will be angry about ground-grown food items. To this pan, add about 1 cup of cock stock. Again, play with your food. Finish this off with 1 ounce of baby cow juice, blended curds, and incorporate. It should look the same on the spatula as it does in the pan. The time has come to remove the forged steel receptacle from the insulated box. Get this out onto a pressed stone that's coated in enamel and top with your WGFI. Smother it, if you will. And finally, top with your GGFI. Stuff a bite into your mouth and enjoy it. You can smother a chicken in anything, just make sure they're butchered first. Buckle up for this one, cowboys. Cowgirls, you're welcome to buckle up as well. In my head, this was going to be as simple as blending cheddar cheese and pork rinds together, which is in fact the first step. You'll need 3 ounces of pork rinds and 8 ounces of sharp cheddar cheese. Please be kind to your blender and shred it first. Blend this on low speed for about 2 minutes or until a cheese dough starts to form. Looks a bit like this. Preferably, place this onto a Silpat lined baking sheet and get it into the general shape of an oval. Grab something heavy. Your mom won't be useful here, so I suggest a pan of some sort. Top the cheese dough with some parchment paper and then press this down with all your might. I made a big oval, about a 1/4 inch thick here, but we're going for Cheez-Its. They're square, if you didn't know. Cut the edges off with a pizza cutter. Remove the excess and make it into little cheese balls. Why not? Try to make 1 by 1 squares with your pizza cutter. If you can't, don't worry. You'll soon find out this was a futile effort. Place this into an oven at 300 degrees Fahrenheit for 28 minutes or until it looks something like this. Not at all what I envisioned in my head. My dumb brain said, yeah, this is exactly what it's going to come out looking like, and it'll taste exactly like Cheez-Its. But this is what I'm left with, and I'm a little disappointed. Melted cheese. I suppose it is just melted cheese with the addition of some pork rinds. I have a lot of ideas how to make this work perfectly as a Cheez-It, but for now, we have to suck it up and cut these squares. Again. These were super greasy, but they had a nice toasty flavor which completely masked the flavor of the pork rinds. I will be doing a dedicated video on this one soon, so be on the lookout for that. But in the meantime, if you make these, leave some comments below with what you would do different to make them better. So, a lot of people have asked me for egg white bread, or cloud bread as it used to be called. I've made it before without filming, and I just don't like it personally. Too eggy. But that's not to say we can't use egg whites to make a bread texture happen. The thing that's lacking in cloud bread for me is density. It's nice and light, but nothing reminiscent of bread. So, I'll be using chicken to make some density. To start, separate 8 eggs, placing the whites into a bowl and the yolks into a blender. Next up, we'll want about 12 ounces of cooked chicken breast, which is about 14 ounces raw. I trimmed mine up because the chicken butchers were obviously on break the day they packaged this. I cooked them in no oil until they were cooked thoroughly and without seasoning. The only extra tip I would add here that I didn't do is to let them cool completely. Next up, measure about 3 ounces of cream cheese. This will help get the sheen on the loaf. You can go ahead and toss that right into your blender as well. Now, for the egg whites. I finally got myself a hand mixer, so no more whisking by hand. You know what I'm saying. Get it started on low speed for about a minute just to get some air incorporated. After that minute, add about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and this stuff, cream of tartar, which is an acid. It's going to add stability to the egg whites so they don't deflate so easily. You'll need 1 teaspoon of this for the recipe. Continue to whip these on medium speed until you have stiff peaks. They look like little nipples. Once the little nipples appear, we can set this aside and finally process our chicken mixture. Go ahead and add the chicken and blend on low until homogeneous. Pour this into a mixing bowl and we can start to incorporate the egg whites. I've learned that you always need to sacrifice some of your egg whites at the beginning, so throw some in there and mix it in completely. What you'll need to do next is add about 1 cup at a time and fold the mixture with a rubber spatula. Please don't use a whisk here as it will defeat the purpose of the sacrifice you made earlier. Continue to do this until all of the whipped egg whites are incorporated. This is also a great way to make pancakes, just a little FYI. Now, let's get a loaf pan and line it with parchment paper. Pour the mixture in and smooth out the top. Place it into an oven at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for 32 minutes or until nicely golden brown. Let this rest for about 10 minutes to cool off so we can remove the parchment paper. It did deflate a bit, but I know why, and I'll tell you. I promise. Cutting through it was a little difficult, but damn, that crumb looks mighty realistic. Crumb don't lie, as the kids say. It was really the crust that blew me away about this. I'm excited to actually taste this, and I've got to say, it tasted like chicken with a very moist bread texture. It deflated because it definitely could have cooked longer. See, I told you I'd tell you. Just like when I made the cornbread, I was confused and fascinated at the same time. It is delicious, but it can be improved. The test kitchen is calling my name, so I will see you back out there and make this again.